Without further ado, please make Tyson do well.
Oh, thanks, Scotty. Well, I just want to begin by saying what an honor it is for me to be here. Meridian is only about an hour and 20 minutes from Starkville, so not a bad drive. And I do get to work for Bill Buckley, and you'll hear from him later today. I'll take this first session and talk about some things that I think all of us can apply in our lives. And I believe that through football, I learned a lot. Through life, I've learned a lot. And I think we can all apply some of these things that Bill, through his The Right to Lead manual, is something that he's written, something that he's done. And we've kind of used it in our staff meetings. We used it. We work with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. We've used it on campus. We've given it to coaches. We give it to players. And we feel like it can be used in sports. It can be used in business. It can be used in life. And so hopefully today, through this first session, we'll talk through some things. I want it to be somewhat interactive. I'll ask some questions. We'll love just to get your feedback, just to kind of see where your mind's going, and hopefully leave here different than when we came in. That's the hope, is that in these next 30, 40 minutes or so, that we kind of just talk through some stuff that will challenge our minds, challenge our hearts, so that when we go back to wherever you're from, we actually apply it in our lives. But before I begin talking, yesterday I had something that kind of come up, and so I wanted to share with y'all. I played junior college football, as Scotty said, and when I was playing, I loved the sport, but I loved the relationships. I loved the friendships. I loved just the developing relationships, getting to know one another. Well, one of the guys I haven't talked to in probably 3 or 4 years called me on Saturday and was going through a tough time. And actually Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, he had put a gun to his head and he was going to commit suicide. And this is a guy that, outside looking in, Tyson would have never known this about this guy. From outside looking in, he played ball. He went to Texas and played ball at a school out there. He played arena ball for a little bit. So outside looking in, you look at this guy, oh, he's fine. He's got it all together. And he calls me on Saturday and says, hey, man, I need to talk to you. And come to find out, he drives to Starkville yesterday. We spent about 3 hours together. And he told me that he had stuck a gun to his head Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I share that with the name of the company being One Life, just to affirm to you and to encourage you that, look, you've got one life to live. And yes, you have a job, and yes, there's importance in meeting quotas, and yes, there's importance of doing your job, but you've got one life to live. Make sure that it's worth living. Make sure that the relationships, the friendships, the way we spend our money, the way we spend our time, just make sure that at the end of life it's worth it. This is from a 25-year-old guy yesterday, just talking to him. So I just wanted to kind of start with that, at least get our minds thinking, well, what is life really about? How can we think about that, and how can that affect us? Well, for me, as Scotty said, I love ball, played ball. But ball taught me a lot about myself. Now as I kind of work, and I walked on, and so in walking on, if you don't know much about it, it's not a very glamorous adventure. If somebody were to say, hey, Tyson, would you do it again? I would say, to get to where I am, yes. If I knew everything that I had to do, no. That's what I tell you. Would you ever go back and do it again? I say, where I am now, what I learned, absolutely. But if I had known what I was going to have to go through to get there, I don't think I would have done it. And so with that, hopefully we can apply it today. I want to ask one question. This is kind of the first interactive question for all of us. I think since we're kind of not all maybe necessarily city boys, city girls, but we're kind of far removed from farming. And you'll say, well, where are you going with this? Well, we don't really understand seasons of life and seasons in the year. We're in a culture, we're in a world that we've got instant access right now. You got a phone, you've got computers, you got iPads. So you just get it right now. So the idea of having to plant a field, wait for it to harvest, and wait for it to come up and then harvest it, it doesn't really make much sense to a lot of us. And we're like, well, why does that matter? Well, if I were to ask you, how does, and this is the first question just for you to answer, how does our lives being removed from understanding seasons of life and how there is a waiting process. And because we can have instant access right now, we've got our phones, we can order something today, we can get it tomorrow. I can go to the grocery store, I don't have to plant a field, I can buy blueberries any time of the year. I don't have to plant them in one season and wait for them to come up. I can actually go today and get them today. And so how could that instant access, that right now mentality affect our jobs, affect our lives, and affect our families? That's just kind of the first question. Love to one or more to answer it. How could that mentality affect the way that we work and affect the way that we live?
I think it could. We would tend to not appreciate things as much. and they're readily available at our fingertips?
We don't, absolutely. Anybody else?
Would appreciate the process.
Wouldn't appreciate the process?
I don't think we learned the lesson that the work we put in now pays off down the road because we don't really, we just aren't trained in the number of things that we do in our life that you have to put something in first in order to achieve that later.
Anybody else?
You can learn patience.
Patience. Amen.
It kind of gives you a sense of entitlement, like I want it right now, like it's mine, I want it right here, right now. And you don't want to go through the whole process.
You don't put the seed in the ground though and ignore it. It has to be nurtured on its way through the process.
But we don't, and with that, we don't really, I say we, currently our generation, we don't understand what nurturing really is. We just get it, keep it, sell it, consume it.
We don't particularly know how to take out the weeds.
We could spend really from Scotty all the way around when people drew things out, there's a lot of things that we could kind of spend time on. But one of the biggest things I think that we all kind of said, either directly or indirectly, was it's a process. And we've got to learn to understand seasons of life and understand processes. Because if not, when the tough seasons of work, of living, of marriages, of homes, of life, when they come, we're always used to the quick fix. We're always used to the right now. Well, we've got to pull some weeds out. We've got to nurture our homes. We've got to nurture our relationships. We've got to nurture our communities. But I feel like me, the one speaking, I feel like I don't truly understand that because I'm always able to get what I want when I want it. And I think it can affect our lives, but I also think it can affect our jobs and the way that we live. So just kind of opening it up, understand that life has seasons and life is a process. And as you said, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, but we've got to be able to appreciate the process. We've got to be able to see God's sovereignty over the long extended time instead of wanting things right now. If you had the Right to Lead manual, one of the things that starts off in that in part one, it talks about Harriet Tubman. And so we're kind of going to move on into, well, I'll go through part one. There's 4 sections, if you will, and we'll kind of banter back and forth about it a little bit. But it talks about Harriet Tubman, and it talks about how, obviously, she is known for establishing the Underground Railroad and how she would help slaves from the South and get them to the North, and there were safe houses, and she was, if you will, the leader, the commander, the one that led the way in helping people go from one place to another. But if you have that, you can look on the page. And this is what would happen. Sometimes the slave would lose his courage or her courage and decide to go back. But Harriet Tubman would put a loaded gun to his or her head and tell him, you have 2 choices. Keep moving on, keep moving north, or you die right here. And why? Because see, if you go back, well, you just ruined it for everybody else. And as a leader, she understood that. And as a leader, it was probably hard. And as a leader, she probably didn't want to do some of the things that she had to do, but she knew that it's bigger than Tyson. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than Scotty. It's bigger than Bill. And so she understood that it wasn't about her. And because it wasn't just about her and individuals, that it was about more than that, she said, hey, look, either you keep moving on or you're going to die right here because you're not going back and going to ruin it for everybody else. And so one thing in that I would say that a quality that a leader has is, one thing Bill talks about often is resolve. In your life, in your job, in your family, on a football field, on a basketball court, at home, wherever you are, having resolve. So what is resolve? To come to a definite decision, to absolutely make up your mind about something, to have no hesitation about a course of action. Leaders must have a great resolve. And sometimes we don't really understand that because we don't really have to make decisions. We allow people to make decisions for us, or we just say, I'm going to pass that on. I'm not going to make that decision. But in work and in life, there are decisions that have to be made. And if we're not nurturing, if we're not helping ourselves understand, well, what does it mean to have resolve? How can I increase in resolve? How can, when the tough times come, do I apply resolve in my life? Well, when they come, we really don't know what to do. But it's important for us to understand how to do that. So a person with resolve will have some qualities. I want to just expand on a few of the qualities. If you have the Right to Lead manual, it's right underneath part 1. A person of resolve will have these qualities: the courage of great faith. And the reason this has to be as important, it has to be essential, it has to be foundational, is because everything in the world changes. The seasons, time, our bodies, our minds, our finances, our jobs, our contacts, everything's always changing. But there's got to be something in the midst of change that's always constant. Because if things are always changing, well, what do we do when we don't know something that's always constant? We're going to tend to go with the change. And really, we're going to probably go with the flow of what other people are doing around us. But when faith is essential, faith is the foundation, well, when things out here get crazy, there's something that stays the same. And some of you are moms, dads, grandfathers. You understand life has seasons. You understand that life isn't always a nice and easy road. And our job is not always easy. And I think that for you and for me, the only thing that we can rest on is the Lord is good and He's sovereign and He's King. In the midst of what's going on, we've got to be able to understand that faith is the foundation. The second one, an extraordinary sense of purpose. What does it mean to have a purpose in life? I'm not talking about as an agent for one life. That's not a big enough purpose for you. As a husband, as a wife, as a dad, those are great things. Don't get me wrong, but if that's the climax, if that's the ultimate, well, I feel like you're selling yourself short. Because underneath that are other things, but above that has to be something that creates in Tyson Lee and Bill Buckley and all of you here, that creates a sense of purpose. Why I do what I do. Why did Tyson leave the NFL? I thought I was going to be a GM, make a lot of money. But as I began to grow, I realized that purpose is so much bigger than a paycheck. And purpose is so much bigger than what other people say about me. Because when I go to bed at night, if I don't understand my purpose, it doesn't matter what I got in the bank. Right. If I don't understand my purpose, it doesn't matter how great my marriage is. I've got to still understand, man, what is my purpose in life? And for you, if you understand your purpose, I can assure you're going to do a great job in your work. If you understand that God's given you a purpose in life, I can assure you that you're going to be a great spouse, a great grandfather, grandmother, mom, dad. But we've got to understand what purpose really means. The third one, a willingness to risk all for the mission. A willingness to risk all for the mission, but I think the question is, what's the mission? Because if the mission isn't grand, if the mission isn't big, well, you're not really going to risk much. The high risk, high reward type thing, if the mission isn't big enough for you, not for a company, not for a family, but for you, if the mission isn't big, then you're not going to be willing to risk everything. You're only going to be willing to risk things that are important to you. But when the mission becomes bigger than yourself and bigger than a company and bigger than your house, where you're willing to risk more because you understand the mission and the purpose. Next was sacrifice far above the average. I put down, if your sacrifices aren't different from other people around you, what makes you worth following? If Bill Buckley, who was my boss, who I admire and respect, if I see him saying one thing and doing another, but I don't see him really making sacrifices, then why would I be willing to make sacrifices? Why would I want to sacrifice if a guy that I admire and look up to doesn't sacrifice? He might talk about it, but if he's not doing it, there's a mix of the two there. But when I see him sacrificing, you know what it does? It makes me think about, am I sacrificing? And I can tell you this, because he sacrifices, I'm willing to follow him. But if he didn't, I don't know so much that I would. And the last one, a person of resolve, will have these qualities: the will and the ability to finish. We've all heard the phrase, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And I think it loses its flavor or loses its sting sometimes because we say it. But it's true. It's not how we start, it's how we finish. But not only that, not only the ability to finish, but the will to finish. Because I think there's a difference there. Having the ability to finish is, you might be gifted at what you do. You might be gifted in your job, your career. You just might be gifted. But having the will is something that has to come from somewhere other than yourself. Because there's days where I just don't feel like working. There's days where I just don't feel like serving my wife. There are just days where I want to do what Tyson wants to do. And if all I put my faith in was my ability, well, what happens when I just don't feel like doing something? We've got to be able to say, you know what? Yeah, ability is good, but I've got to have the will to finish what I start. Finish the day, finish the week, finish the month, finish the quarter. Whatever it is, we've got to have the ability, but we also have got to have the will. A couple questions just out of curiosity. Do you know a person radically sold out to a cause? And what's it like being around that person? That's kind of a next question. Do you know somebody that's sold out to something? And what is it like to be around that person? Nobody? I'll go. I'm around Bill Buckley. He's here, so I get to talk about it. What's it like? It's challenging. It's hard, but it's good. Being around somebody that's sold out to a cause. Look, I can't come in, and if Bill sold out to a cause, and I kind of just come in half-stepping. Because it separates the sheep from the wolves kind of thing. But because Bill sold out, well, when I'm around him, I find out if I'm really sold out or not. But if I'm not around him, I can tell myself I'm sold out. But until we get around people that are striving, people that are working, and people that are moving in a direction at a fast pace, I don't know that we'll be called out necessarily. I don't know that we'll be found out in our lives. Go on to the next page if you have it. I think it says faith and vision at the top if you do have it. I've got kind of my own notes, so following along. But if you look on the page, it talks about an American pioneer who was going west, and he got separated from, if you will, his tribe. And while he was separated from his tribe, I think this has implications now in our lives. He got separated and was on his horse, and the horse's leg broke. And so he's just walking. He's in a desert. He's tired. He's thirsty. And he comes to pretty much a faucet or a fountain, and there's a bucket. And in the bucket, there's this note. And there's 3 drops. He said, yeah, you can drink this little bit, or you can use what's in here to get more. And so Bill shared this with us a while back, and first time I heard it, I was like, okay, well, what can we really get out of this? And one thing that we talked about is faith is risky. And what I mean by that, not faith in the one who came and died and was raised again, but faith is risky because you don't know what's going to come. But if you don't do it, how will you ever know? It's tough. I mean, there's times in my life where I've made decisions, and honestly, there's never been this audible voice that I knew I was supposed to do it. To this day, I haven't had that yet. But there have been moments where I had to make a decision by faith, willing to risk a lot, but it was worth it. And I think that happens in our jobs. I think it happens in our lives. I think it happens in our homes. We just got to ask ourselves, well, what is it that we're willing to risk, and is what we're willing to risk worth it? And so on that page, I put a couple notes on my own page, but I thought it was interesting. Really, the next to last paragraph, it says, he showed great faith and courage, 2 things a true leader must possess. He showed great faith and he showed courage, and those are 2 things that a leader must possess. And as I say this, I was driving over this morning just thinking about the talk, and I feel like I would share this. I do believe leaders can be born. I believe that some people just have a charisma, and some people just have a knack for people who want to follow them. But I believe that you can develop leadership. I believe that there are certain people that they just have a knack for drawing people. But I also believe that you can develop in your leadership, but it takes faith and it takes courage. It takes stepping out of the box. It takes stepping out of a comfort zone. It takes asking people questions to help you. Hey, Bill, hey, Scotty, how do you think I could grow as a person? What do you think I could do to get better? And that takes courage, because when you ask that, you're already recognizing that you need help. And as men, we don't want to ask people for help because it's like we're showing insecurity, or it's like we're showing that we don't have it all together. Well, let me affirm to you, we don't have it all together. And to ask is okay. To ask somebody, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, what should I do about this? And not just in a job, but in life, at home. To ask people, hey, how can I get better at this? There's nothing wrong with that. But it does take courage. It takes willing to take a step out of things that might be comfortable. Something that I think we all can struggle with. Going to the last two sections. Qualities of a true leader. So if you got it, you can turn there. Just some qualities of a true leader. And I just wanted to kind of expand on some of these. I know you can read, but to kind of at least put some feet to it. The cost of leadership is great. But one of the most costly, I think, qualities that a leader needs is diligence. To be diligent. Well, what is diligence? What does it mean to be diligent? Another question just to hear from you. What does that mean? Steadfastness. Hard working. Commitment. Keep going. Consistent. You know, underneath all these, there's one kind of common denominator, is time. Because hard work is easy in a day. But how do I be hard working for a year? Or how do I be consistent? It's easy for me to be consistent for a couple hours while I'm talking, but how can I be consistent in life? And so diligence it's over a period of time, and it's a process, and it's got to be consistent. So the definition is the constant and real effort to accomplish what is undertaken with persistent force. So that idea of persistence. Man, it's tough. Man, it's hard. But diligence is pressing on even when it gets tough. Pressing on even when it's hard. Pressing on over a period of time. A diligent leader has 7 qualities, so we'll go over these 7. A leader is humble. And if there was one on here that I would like to spend the most time on, is this one. What does it mean to be humble? I think we hear it, we talk about it. What does it mean?
Not thinking too highly of yourself.
Having great character.
Great character.
Willingness to accept their faults.
Teachable. I think we kind of confuse, and Bill put it in the manual, this idea of humility is walking around with your kind of head down in the sand, just kind of real droopy and woe is me type mentality. That's not humility. Humility is understanding who you are and being willing to be teachable. Being willing to elevate others above you. Being willing to take the back seat when everybody else is going for the front seat. Being willing to not strive for everything that everybody else is striving for. That's humility. Humility has nothing to do necessarily with the posture of my body. What it really has to do is the attitude of my heart, because if I'm humble in my heart, it's going to express itself in my life. Because I can walk in here and talk to you and honestly make you think I'm humble. But what's going on in my heart is going to display itself when I leave here and next week. And so humility is a lifestyle. It's an attitude of the heart. And we've got to be willing to put others above us. In a competitive world, in a world you're always trying to one-up somebody. How can we stay humble? How can we try to take the back seat and put others in the front seat? And guess what? When you start doing that, people notice it. Because not many people will do that. Not many people say, you know what? Let me help you get up here. Most of the time it's like, you know what? Let me find a way to kind of suppress you and keep you down. And it's a culture. It's a mindset. And if we're not careful, we'll easily get there and begin to justify it. That's kind of just our own default. We always justify to make ourselves get a little bit better. The second one. A leader takes the initiative to act. But in order to act, you've got to see a need for action, right? So What that means is a leader is aware of what's going on around him. She is aware of what's going on around her. Because if I'm not aware of the needs, or I'm not aware of what's going on, I can't act because I don't know what's going on. But at least if I'm sensitive to my environment, I'm sensitive to what's going on, well, I see somebody and I'll take the initiative to act. So I don't think that it's necessarily on the acting as much as it is being aware of what it is that we need to do, and then being willing to have that courage to actually do it. Number 3, a leader understands and communicates the vision. Bill has actually kind of challenged our FCA staff to, Tyson, what is your vision with FCA? What is it? Not what is the home office vision. Underneath that, we will adhere to that, but what is your vision? What is our vision with Mississippi State FCA? And the reason it's important for me to know the vision is because if I don't know it, I can't communicate it. I can work hard and I'll work long and I'll work a lot. But if I don't know the vision, as I'm working, I can't communicate why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so he sent the email on Monday, and I'm still, as you can tell, thinking, what is my vision? But in wrestling with that, it makes me think about, why do I do what I do? Why do you do what you do? Why do you work for this company? Why do you do things in your life? And when we begin to see the mission and the vision, I think it gives us some direction, and then we can communicate it to those that we're around and those that we're working with. Number 4, it says a leader takes risk, and we've kind of talked about that, so I'll move on to the next one. A leader has courage. We've talked on that one, but number 6, a leader is focused. Man, a leader has to know where it is that he or she is going. And if you don't, you need help to find out where it is you're going. If not, you're just going to spin your wheels, and you're going to get to the end of the road and realize that you're not where you intended to be. And it's a simple concept. It's so simple to the idea of, well, I need to know where I'm going, because if I was, just like today, I came to the wrong place before I came here. But in life, it's the same way. If I don't know where I'm going, well, next week, next month, 10 years, I'm going to find myself in a place that I don't need to be. So I've got to be able to cast a vision for my life, and I've got to be able to cast a vision for my family. I've got to be able to cast a vision for my job, but I'm the one that's got to be focused. You have to be focused. I met Scotty maybe a month ago, and I'm thankful for Scotty, but guess what? Scotty can't be with me every day to tell me what I'm supposed to be doing. He can't be with you. Your coworkers can't be with you. So if you're not focused, well, what happens when you leave a leadership summit type thing? Because there's some ownership that has to be taken when you leave here. And I believe there's a lot of good stuff that we'll hear and that we'll receive. But then when we leave, and what do I do with it? And what do you do with it? And will we take these things out into our lives? And the last one, a leader is an overcomer and a finisher. A leader sees adversity as an opportunity and problems as stepping stones. That's so hard to wrap our mind around, but we've got to see the tough times as opportunity to grow for ourselves. But guess what? It's probably going to come around again another time. So if you don't learn from it, you're going to get another chance. So let's try to learn from it the first time, so the second time it comes, it's not as hard. And then we can help somebody else not have to go through the things that we've been through. And the last part, vision. The cost of doing something great. Vision is, if you will, defined by the ability to see and anticipate a desired future. So the question I asked, I remember when I was working in St. Louis, I don't know if somebody asked me or I read it, and this is the last section. If somebody asked me, they said, Tyson, what's the difference between sight and what's the difference between vision? And I was like, well, yeah, I don't know. So what is the difference between sight and what's the difference between vision? That's kind of just something I ask. You don't have to, but just let that sit. Like, is there a difference? And I believe that there is. I believe it can apply in a job. It can apply in our lives. It can apply in every area. I put sight as the obvious. It's what's right in front of you. Everybody can see it. But vision is the ability to see past what's in front of you and what might not be as obvious. So sight is I walk in, I meet Scotty, some other guys, that's sight. Well, vision is I walk in, I say, well, how can we make this company a better company? That's not the obvious. And it's the same way in your life. So to think about, man, I do see things, but how can I cast a vision for my job, for this company? It's tough, but I believe that the visionaries are the ones that we follow after. The visionaries are the leaders. The visionaries are the ones that people will come behind. I want to go through these real quick, and I'll be done. It says 7 Ds of accomplishing your vision. And I'll say this, when I walked on to Mississippi State, it really was, it was very hard. And when I was reading through these and just going over them, all 7 of these I experienced. Honest to goodness. I experienced, it talks about the 7 Ds of accomplishing your vision because it was long term, it was going to take time. But the first one is discover desire. The condition of your heart must be right to carry a great vision. Because if not, let's say that you have a vision, but let's say you're not ready. Well, what happens if you get what it is that you thought you needed, but you're not ready for it? You'll blow it. You're dangerous. The people that you're working with, that you're working around, they're dangerous. And so for me, I understood that when I was going through school and even now, that a lot of times that we think we want, the things that we think we need, we're not ready for them. Because if we get them, if we had them, we'd probably mess it up, we'd probably waste it. But if we understand the seasons of life, just trust the process. And when it does come, guess what? You'll be ready for it. I'm so thankful that I didn't get what I thought I needed at certain points in my life. And I think a lot of you would probably agree. But as you go on, you'll begin to see, as my man right here said earlier, the process. You kind of take for granted the whole process if we get the things that we want right now. Dare to declare. Write your vision down. Make it visual so that you can see it daily, multiple times a day. Write it down. You see it, you know it, but the people around you see it, the people around you, they'll know it. It gives clarity and certainty to you and everybody that's involved. Dreams demand doing. This is one of the things that I've seen and I've experienced. We all want the big things. We do. I do. But we don't want to do the little things, but the little things are what prepares us for the big things. And we've got to do the small things. How about we notice the people that do the small things for us? The janitors. Well, guess what? If they didn't do their job, well, you'd be taking out the trash. It's those little things that they mean something. And to you it might be little, but guess what? To that janitor, it's not little because it's their job. But I believe if we begin to take a step back and yes, have visions, want the big things, but in lieu of that, let's look at the little things. Let's do the small things, the hard things, the little things that will prepare us for the big things. Decide right now, and as Harriet Tubman said, that you're not turning back. You've got to draw a line in the sand and ask yourself, what is it that I'm about and why am I about that? Number 5, dedicate yourself. If you can't pay the price now and endure the sacrifice, then the vision is going to be sucked out of you as time goes. And with that, if you don't pay the price now, you don't really enjoy it when you get it. That's the irony in life, is we suffer, but then when we get it, we appreciate the suffering because it taught us something. But if I didn't suffer, then how would I learn to appreciate things that come? If I didn't lose, how would I learn to appreciate wins? And so we've got to understand that we've got to be willing to trust that process and go through those tough times. And the last 2, a vision is tested by adversity. Adversity is as key to a vision as the vision itself. It is. It's coming. Maybe it's here. It's coming. The adversity is not the issue. It's what are you going to do when it comes? I know it's coming. Yesterday, I would say adversity came. My buddy called, hey, Tyson, I'm struggling with life. Well, I would say I was adversity, but I didn't know how I was what to do, but I knew that it was coming, and I was able to respond in the moment. It's the same way in jobs. It's the same way in life. So if you don't have it or you're in it, just trust the process. And it's teaching you something. Hopefully you'll grow from it. And the last one, destiny. The cost of doing something great is big, and it'll cost you a lot. And I thought, I've got a baby on the way, and many of you are parents, and so I thought about this illustration, the cost versus the reward. And so I remember growing up, Mom didn't make a lot, but she spent a lot on us for Christmas. And the cost was hard. You get the Christmas presents and you exhaust the bank account. And then you still got to live life after Christmas, right? But why she did it was because of smiles on our face and because of what it was that we got from it. And so for me and for you, the cost is big, but we've got to remember the reward. And I think for her and even for me now that there's some things that are costly, but I don't focus on what it's going to cost me. I've got to focus on, man, what's going to come after the cost. So I hope that today, just through these things, that we begin to evaluate our lives, examine our lives, and see what it means to be a leader in our homes, in our jobs, in our lives. And just to think about these things and hopefully apply them. Just like anything, if it just stays here but it doesn't make its way into activity, then it was pointless and meaningless. So I hope that I leave here and I do the things that I said. But also hope that you got something, even if it's just a small thing, that you got something you can apply for one life, for your lives, and for your family. So thank y'all so much and bless you.